So how does an insurgency just declare itself a state? How does a terrorist group manage to control a chunk of land the size of Great Britain, build up a multi-billion-dollar war chest, and pull in tens of thousands of followers from all over the world? Well, that's the story of ISIS. Today, we're going to unpack their absolutely staggering rise and their equally dramatic fall.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll dig into their origins and see how they used pure chaos to build their so-called state. Then we're going to go inside the caliphate to understand how it actually worked on a day-to-day basis. From there, we'll trace their global terror network, watch the international campaign that brought it all crumbling down, and finally, we'll ask the big question: what's actually left of ISIS today?
And you know, this right here is what made ISIS so terrifyingly different. This wasn't just some group hiding out in caves. For a while, this was a physical entity, a proto-state that ran cities, managed oil fields, and ruled over a population bigger than some actual countries. So how on earth did that happen? To answer that, we really have to rewind the clock, because the story of the ISIS state didn't just pop up overnight. It actually started years earlier, born from the chaos of war in Iraq. So the story really kicks off back in 2004 with al-Qaeda in Iraq, a direct product of the mayhem after the US-led invasion. A couple years and a name change later, the group was on the ropes but never fully out. But the real game changer was the Syrian civil war in 2011. It created this massive power vacuum that they just ruthlessly exploited, pouring across the border and grabbing territory. And it all just exploded in June 2014, when they shocked the world by capturing Iraq's second biggest city, Mosul, and made their big declaration, a global caliphate. So this word, caliphate, what does it actually mean? Well, it's a claim to be the one true, legitimate state for all Muslims, everywhere, ruled by a successor to the Prophet Muhammad. Now, this wasn't just some random word they picked. It was an unbelievably powerful propaganda tool. It was specifically designed to lure in thousands of foreign fighters and give their brutal project this veneer of religious and historical legitimacy. Okay, so declaring a state is one thing. Actually running one, that's a whole different ballgame. See, ISIS didn't just want to attack governments. They wanted to be the government. So what did life actually look like inside this so-called caliphate? Yeah, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? How did they manage to pay their fighters, run some basic public services, and fuel a massive war machine all at the same time? Seriously, where did all that money come from? Well, unlike groups like al-Qaeda, which really depended on wealthy foreign donors, ISIS was almost entirely self-funded. They basically ran their territory like a state-sized mafia. Their two biggest moneymakers: oil from the fields they captured, which they sold on the black market, and of course, the systematic taxation and extortion of the millions of people trapped under their rule. And they built this chillingly effective bureaucracy to manage it all. I mean, they had actual ministries, they collected taxes, they ran public utilities. But, and this is the key, all of that was paired with a system of absolute terror. A brutal, twisted version of Sharia law enforced by religious police and public executions. It was this bizarre combination of providing some services while using extreme violence to crush any dissent. That was the secret to their control. But their ambition didn't stop at their own borders. Not even close. ISIS was also busy building a global network that could project terror far, far beyond the Middle East. Tens of thousands. Just let that number sink in. That's the estimated number of foreign fighters who packed their bags and traveled to Iraq and Syria to join ISIS. It was a global recruitment drive on a scale we had never seen before. And this created one of the most dangerous and complicated legacies of the whole conflict. These fighters came from over 100 different countries, and now those same countries are stuck grappling with this incredibly difficult problem of what to do with the survivors, the returnees, their families, and the ongoing threat of radicalization they might pose. At the same time, the group was directing or inspiring these horrific attacks all over the world. Think of the coordinated assaults in Paris in 2015 or the bombings in Brussels in 2016. And this wasn't random. It was a calculated strategy. They wanted to create fear, to polarize societies, and to provoke a massive military response from the West, which played right into their apocalyptic worldview. And provoke a response they did. The world wasn't just going to stand by. A massive, multinational campaign kicked into gear with one goal: to tear down this physical caliphate piece by brutal piece. The tide really started to turn in 2017. First, with the incredibly bloody and hard-fought liberation of Mosul in Iraq. Then came the fall of their de facto capital, Raqqa, in Syria. The final nail in the coffin for their landholding project came in March 2019, when their last little sliver of territory in a town called Bahus was finally captured. And to top it all off, later that year, their leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, was killed in a U.S. raid. So you look at the map at the end of 2019, and the black flag is gone. The physical state is completely dismantled. But, and this is a huge but, taking away their territory was not the same thing as destroying the organization or the ideology that fueled it. Which brings us right up to today, into our final section. What has ISIS become since losing all its land? Because one thing is for sure, it is not gone. The group has completely transformed. It shifted from being a centralized, top-down state that was funded by oil and taxes to a decentralized global network. Today, it's a hidden insurgency in Iraq and Syria, made up of scattered cells and global affiliates that fund themselves through crime and extortion. It's a different kind of threat, but it is a threat nonetheless. The legacy of the ISIS caliphate is just devastating. We're talking about millions of displaced people in a massive humanitarian crisis, that still unsolved problem of foreign fighters, and a whole lot more instability in the region. And maybe most importantly, the ISIS brand, the idea, continues to inspire violent extremist groups and lone actors all around the world. And that leaves us with this one final critical question to think about. The physical caliphate has been destroyed. The black flags are down. But have the root causes, the state failure, the sectarian conflicts, the political grievances that allowed a group like ISIS to rise up in the first place, have those conditions really gone away?